Welcome. Thank you for joining us. And this is part of a series called Weaving Stories for Your Well-Being. And it is hosted by PureEsperanza. If you're not familiar with PureEsperanza, we are a nonprofit organization dedicated to bringing forth consciousness while educating body, mind, and soul in the art of well-being. Tonight's topic, patience, panic, and presence. And we have been on this series for a little while now, but the last one and this one is kind of conjoined together by what we've been experiencing with the pandemic. We thought it was an important opportunity to be able to speak and share some different insights together and through our stories. So I am so happy because we have always with us a beautiful storyteller, an eco-friendly advocate, an environmental enthusiast, a copywriter by day, and also the CEO and founder of The Green Writer. And that is a dear friend of ours, Balaka Ghosal. Balaka, thank you so much for being here and sharing your beautiful gifts, that which you love to do is tell stories.
Thank you so much. It's such a great opportunity that Esperanza you have created, and such a beautiful idea to bring stories even for grown-ups, because we find that that's such an amazing pathway to bring new ideas into our minds and to help us grow. And today we're actually meeting to discuss how these past several months have been for all of us. You know, different countries have gone through those curves and second waves, especially in India very recently. And what I've always believed, that trouble is often a very good teacher. You know, adversity, sometimes even in Napoleon Hill in his book Think and Grow Rich said that opportunity often came as a disguise of adversity through the back door, and we often don't recognize it. Today we'll be discussing how, and I'm sure everyone has had, you know, life experiences or family stories or things that you have seen and heard that has taught us exactly that how, you know, even a forest fire, apparently it's a disaster, not at the scale that we see these days, but in general, forest fires actually help many seeds to burst open, you know. So apparently what seemed like destruction is helping the next generation of plants that wouldn't germinate otherwise. So that's a, you know, one way to discover that. And
you know, Balaka, that sort of reminds me of that boat story you were telling me the other day.
Oh yes, oh yes. I was in 5th grade at that time and staying in a city called Benares, which is the oldest town of India, actually. So it's by the Ganges, and the Ganges is very wide and deep over there. Almost everyone is a swimmer, like fishes, especially the boatmen. And one side of the city is bustling, where the people live. On the other side, it's mostly, open lands, but the king used to stay there a long time ago, and now it's a museum. So back in, you know, I'm telling the childhood experience where we heard that story of a few boys, you know, college boys who had gone to explore that museum, and they were coming back. The boat was the only way, the ferry boat that took people to the other side, to the museum and back. It was time for the museum to close and the boat was about to leave. There were about 80 people on a big boat, not the kind you see these days, a typical, you know, like a kayak, hundreds of times larger. And the cycles and the people are all stacked and sitting in benches, and the cycles are balanced on both ends. And it's about to leave when one of the young boys suddenly discovered that, oops, where's my wallet? I dropped my wallet at the museum. But there was hardly any time. The boat would leave in 10 minutes. So they said, okay, we just will sprint down to the museum, just see if I can spot the wallet somewhere and be right back. But he wanted a friend. He said, I don't want to go alone. And he picked one of the friends. Hey, can you come with me? I said, sure. And so both ran down, scanning the street to see if and there are no human communities there. It's just pretty much the museum. So they didn't find it. They went into the foyer. It was about to close. And this is, sir, we don't have time. But they looked around. It was time for the boat to leave. And then suddenly, this young man discovered that the wallet was on the other side of another pocket in his pants. And he said, oh, I found it. And the other friend who he had brought along was so amused and irritated at the same time. Like, now we're going to miss the boat, because if they miss the boat, they have to walk miles to where the bridge is. It's a huge, railroad and traffic, regular road bridge, but there's no conveyance. And at that time, they would pretty much have to walk a couple of miles and then cross the bridge and then again walk or do whatever, hitchhike to their home. I said, oh dear, just let's run now. Why did you do that? Why didn't you check all your pockets? I said, I never keep my wallet in the other pocket. It's always, ever since I've had a wallet in my teenage years, it's been in this one side where I'm used to. Well, it was supposed to be that way. And the moment they reached the banks, they saw that the boat had left. It was about 12 feet away. It's very hard for a big boat to again kind of bring it back, and it's a rowboat. So I said, sorry, you can't, you have to walk. And they were all screaming at each other, those boys, can you believe it? He had it in his pocket all along. And he was feeling embarrassed that, why did this happen? And now my friend has to walk with me. He has company, but all the way, this other friend who was a little irritated, upset because it's getting cloudy, it's going to rain, and now we have to walk in this lashing rain, and he chided and he kind of poked fun at him. It was like a sweet and bitter conversation going on between them, embarrassment and a little bit of anger, hours and hours of that. They walked in lashing rain, in blinding, rain. Around midnight, they reached home. Because being that kind of weather, most of the transport or the rickshaws were all gone. They knew that they wouldn't have customers. By the time they reached their home, they lived close by. Their families were shocked to see them. I mean, happy kind of shocked, but kept asking, how did you get home? Well, because the weather was like that. That was a normal question. They said, yeah, we missed the boat, of course. And said, oh, you missed the boat, thank God. And, they were all, again, crying and laughing. It was a mix of emotion. And these boys, each in their own home, couldn't understand, like, what's going on with our family members. That's when they figured out. They were told that the boat capsized in the middle of the river and no one survived. All the 80 people who know how to swim, who have grown up by the river, the boat, it seems, back in those days, and I'm old, so about like 45 years ago, there were no, weather data, but it looks like now that it was a tornado that kind of flipped the boat over like this, and most of the people were trapped underneath it. So in that commotion, in the crowded commotion under the boat, coming out was a struggle. Those who came out in that turbulence didn't make it to the shore. So that's when the friend who was grumbling all along that you and your wallet, you kept it in the wrong pocket, you didn't even check. Whoa, what a story. This is going to be the story of our college. Was stupefied into silence, that had he not picked me to go with him, had he not felt that he lost his wallet, where would I be now? And even this young man who had misplaced his wallet in the wrong pocket was thinking, like all my life, I've never, ever, and it was his pride. He kept saying, I've never done it before. Was thinking, what made me buy whatever and keep the wallet in the other pocket that I never do in my entire life, never done it. But that mistake, which apparently seemed like so much trouble, series of trouble, missing the boat, not getting anything to ride, and then walking hours to our homes, was actually the blessing that we didn't know until we discovered the boat capsizing. So I'm sure those two men in future, through other apparent adversities, must have felt that, okay, just chill. Let's see what we can do. Let's not worry too much about it. I'm sure they've had a wisening experience for their entire life, which they may have told their children and grandkids by now. So in the pandemic, we're not having storms, but we're having troubles like losing jobs, or just seeing the economy go through this struggle, and then the suffering of the disease itself. So Esperanza, I mean, I'm sure you and all the listeners, that you have a take on this, and you must have experienced something in your past or in the current moment that if we go through this, we will perhaps see some wisening lessons that have reached us that we won't see right now.
Yes, I think that is that's a very important piece. I was listening to you tell the story right now, and just we can see the impact when it's happening to us right away. We have direct experience, and we understand it. And I think with the pandemic, it's been such a long span, and there's been so many different things happening to different individuals. But when you hear those stories about something happening all the way on the other side of the world, it's like people don't see where the connection is for yourself, or see that kind of impact in your own life. And people don't always put the links together either, that something that's happening could have this trickle effect that's, playing out in this long-term way, or still yet to come, of what's going on. And I think that, oftentimes people are really busy with, just trying to see what all the extremities of this situation is, and we're still referring to getting back to quote unquote normal, but there is a change. There's a real change that's happened, and so how to embrace that kind of change, and how to allow, like what you had mentioned, those seeds in the fire, how to allow them to actually germinate for us.
And you were so right when you said that when tragedies are happening across, on the other side of the world, our own plate is so full that we don't always relate to that. And during a pandemic, it's not just the disease, it's so many multi-dimensional effect it's having on everyone, each in their own way. The fear, the panic, and how to be patient through this, and how long is this going to carry on? When is this going to end? Not that there was no trouble before, but it's just far too many and too much to handle all at once. And it's it's always those who are more patient. We can analyze and think of things that'll happen maybe 2 years down the road, or at least even 2 months down the road. Most of us want it like right then. And that reminds me actually of a disaster, because the story that I told here, these two boys didn't have to experience the disaster. They went through a trouble patch and they were saved from a disaster. But sometimes an apparent disaster for yourself actually can become a wisening moment for the future. And again, it's a story from my childhood that I read about an old man in Japan named Yamaguchi. His little village was on top of a hill, a cluster of cottages, and they had just done their harvest on the side of the hills. You know how the steppe cultivation, rice, they had put everything into their silos, all the grains. And that afternoon was a free afternoon. That's such a rare thing for farmers, you know, to have a free afternoon. So after everything was kept in place, the man, the head of the village said, let's all go down to the ocean, because the village was right by the side of a beach. And everyone, even the women that finished their cooking and that gone out to enjoy. Only the old man, who was about 90 years old, he was too old to go down. So he said, let me watch you all have fun from here. And he sat in his stool overlooking the beautiful beach and the ocean, feeling the breeze. And his caregiver was a 10-year-old grandson who sat by him listening to stories. And they were watching the people have fun. And the 10-year-old was like, oh, I wish I could go too, but I'm enjoying being by grandfather, but it's not like so much fun. Look, they're collecting shells, and how the low tide is going back and further back and further back, as if the ocean was just saying, come play with me, come find me, touch my waves, and find the shells which were unaffected. You know, they were like fresh on the sands, and kids and their parents were running up, you know, after the wave, collecting them. And this boy said, oh, this is so cool, grandfather, I wish we could all be there. And the grandfather sat there. He didn't have a powerful eyesight. He said, did the sea go far back, you said? He said, yeah, it's curling. All the waves are just as if they're running away. And the grandfather suddenly got a little agitated and said, tell them to come back right now. Scream out to them. That didn't make sense. And his grandfather wasn't senile up until now. Why is he saying that? They need to come back. I said, but why, Grandpa, why? And he said, just tell them to come back. And he suddenly lost his temper. He jumped out and he said, get me the torch. So the son brought the torch out, and he was like, maybe I have to wave it to them to come back for whatever reason. Grandpa wants them to be back. Grandpa took the torch from his hands, went to those grain silos and put the fire in it. The grandson knew it's the most dangerous thing, because their whole season's food is in there. He kept tugging at his grandpa's clothes and don't do it. And you know, in Japan, how respectful you have to be. There's those, social behaviors. And he knew that he had to stop his grandfather from doing it. And he kept saying, call them back, call them back. And then the smoke was rising. Then the blaze. All the villagers looked up and saw it. They were screaming and coming up the hill. Those who were far out near the waves were also running back. And first, this boy's father came up and said, what happened to it? Why didn't you stop him? I said, I'm trying, but something got, he just lost his temper and he's doing this. I don't know why he's doing it. And then the son held the father and said, Father, stop. Why are you doing this? And he kept screaming, is everybody back? Is everybody back? And he was like a lion roaring. By then, the entire crop was burning. And then the village said, yes, we are all back, for heaven's sake. And then he said, look. And they were all looking at the grandfather, right, with their back towards the ocean. And the way he said, look, they all turned around to see the wall of water coming up towards them. It was a tsunami hitting the village after about 100 years. The village had never seen, they'd only heard of the tsunami. They'd never experienced it. And it was coming towards them. And within minutes, only the village on top of the hill remained out of the water. The entire place became part of the ocean. They were like in an island surrounded by raging waters and debris. And very soon, the water receded. And there was destruction all around, and no one was talking during this whole time. And then they knew why this grandfather did it, why he kept asking, is everybody back? And so finally, the father asked the grandpa, Father, how did you know this was going to happen? And he said, when I was 10, my grandfather had told me a story that his village was wiped out and only a few of them were alive because the sea had gone too far back out. And he had told me, if ever I saw the sea curl up like that, I need to run for my life to the top of the hill. And he doesn't see very well. But when the grandson kept saying, oh, it's so much fun, the sea is going back, further back, he knew that the tsunami is coming. And this was setting fire to the crop was the only way to create that panic in the people to come rush up to save it. Of course, they couldn't save it. But he said, at least we are not wiped out. We are alive. Yes, we will be hungry. Yes, we may have to beg around for some funds to sustain, but we are all alive. And no matter how hard life is going to be for maybe a whole year, we will make it through hardship, but we'll make it through. And that reminds me of people who have lost their family members in this tragedy. There is no compensation. It is much worse than your crop burning down, much worse than a season's poverty. But at the same time, I've seen quite a few times in my life that a tragedy without a warning, when it has wiped out family members, I've seen the survivors rise to levels that they never knew they had the power within themselves. They never knew throughout their youth that they would be able to do the things, learn up skills, or go through, find their resilience. It was like a self-discovery, I even don't want to call it a journey. It's like a sudden door opening where you discover a pot of treasure that you never knew existed, that you used to survive. So
Yes.
that tragedy, I cannot say, oh, well, that was the benefit. Benefit is a, improper word to use it. But it's the limitless power within human beings. Sometimes a tragedy like this brings it out. An
Yes.
impoverished man can come up on a business idea that can help millions of people. A single mother who has lost everyone in her family can rise up to do things that their children never knew their mother had the strength to do. So you never know.
Yeah.
You just have to wait and see what impact this tragedy, what kind of wisdom, whether it's in resilience towards the environment, whether it's resilience towards our pain, whether opening the gates for a spiritual strength to hold us, we never know. And I'm sure each
Wow.
one of
Thank
you
you.
have this.
Yes. Thank you so much, Balaka. That was an amazing story. And I think that so many people right now are facing things in different ways. And you had touched on, the ideas of, not knowing what others are going through, but also as we're going through it, what is coming up for us. And that's so unique and so important and so significant to us directly and our journeys, our soul journey. So I like that you had touched on, we see these strengths that arise from us, or this wisdom that arise from us, from our experiences. And it's true about all of life. And right now it feels like the pandemic is collectively affecting all of us and bringing us to these ideas that we had presented this topic with, which is, patience. We have these choices. We can panic, or we can have presence. And we can look at those three words in a lot of different ways about how we actually maintain presence during these kinds of times that we may be experiencing. And the opposite of that would be to be in that movement of that energy of fear and panic. And obviously, for all of us, we understand, having had experiences of fear or even panic, that it usually leads us to a more confused state rather than being clear. And that clarity also allows us to be empathetic to what other situations are, because we can see clearer in all around us. So there's a lot of different levels of this. And I wanted to mention to everyone, I know, Balaka, you froze there for a minute. And yeah, and I'd like to invite people to bring their cameras on, if they would please, so that we can go ahead and just open it up for any insights in your own sharing. Because Balaka, I think while you mentioned things kind of in a general way, I know you've personally had these different experiences happening. I know some of the things you mentioned were actual direct experiences with your relatives in India and what they've been going through. And it must be, I've thought about you often as things here are opening up everywhere, and people, many people are speaking about it like it's all over. It's we can move on now. And I'm thinking, how does Balaka feel when it's not over for her family and her and what they're experiencing?
India went through that. It's all over, and we did it. Kind of a confidence in February this year. And it came, the third wave came after that, so regardless of what the realities are, I've seen leaders, true leaders, stay calm even in the face of an impending disaster, when it is unfolding. Like Mahatma Gandhi used to say that peace is not when everything is nice around you and everything is okay and you are feeling peaceful. Peaceful is when things are not right, but you have the resilience to stay calm, where the provocation is for panic. And I think each one of us have the potential to be the leader of our own lives, where we can help ourselves to rise, to the occasion, to deal with the uncertainty, the fear of, either the disease or the aftermath or financial. But I would like to listen to the insights and stories of
any of our guests here. Yeah, I just put into the chat box if anybody's had any experiences. Feel free to turn on your microphone and your camera now. That would be great. We'd love to have you join us in that way. And if you're more comfortable to put it in the chat, please go ahead and write there too. We would love to hear if people are having different experiences or what their take is on, some of these things that we presented tonight, and even other ways that, what we've discussed about patience or panic, or presence, how they've aided you or disabled you during this time. We invite you to share there. So I'm wondering if anybody here has had a direct experience with what they've gleaned, what's something important that they've gleaned from this time right now. And Balaka, I think
or a pivoting moment. Am I still frozen? Very hot in Houston. Everything's going.
We don't have you on camera right now. It says that your video is on, but your photo is not on. Your picture.
My photo is on though. Let me.
Yeah, it is. Now I got your photo. There you are again.
So I think it was just frozen since then.
Yeah.
You know, while our listeners are thinking, I would just, I'm reminded, as a storyteller, I keep remembering stories. In my aunt who stayed in London with her 3 children, and my aunt and uncle had booked a flight to go to Germany on their summer vacation. And it was a early morning flight. So the taxi they had booked in advance had to come at like 4 a.m. to pick them up. And the driver, alarm didn't go off, so he did not show up at the door at the right time. My uncle was in panic and he was angry because 5 people's ticket, they're going to miss the flight, and it's hard to accommodate 5 people into the next flight. It's sometimes you don't get 5 empty seats in the in the following flights. So he knew it's going to be hard. Children were very young, so it was they will have to split in 2 groups. But he called the taxi driver and he said, oops, my alarm didn't go off. I'm so sorry, I'm coming right away. But they zipped through the traffic and went, there was hardly any traffic, but going to Heathrow wasn't very easy so late for their flight. They missed it by about a couple of minutes only. And all the way, my uncle was upset. My aunt was, she didn't know what to say. The kids didn't know what to do. The driver was feeling bad. So it was like a bad time through the whole time. And when they reached there, they got on, they fortunately got the next flight with 5 seats in there. They sat down, seat belts on, and the announcement came on that the previous flight was hijacked to Norway.
Oh, wow.
Except for my little brother, who said, I would have a great story to tell after vacation.
Oh, no.
Friends. Except for him, everyone was so relieved that I'm so thankful that the alarm for my driver didn't go off on time. So you see, this is a tiny story to show that we need to be a little open and curious to see, okay, this is something I had no control on. Let's see at the end of this,
Yeah, that's important. T had something that she wanted to mention. T, are you there?
Hi, Esperanza. Hello.
Hi, T. Pleasure to have you joining us.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. And hi, Balaka. Did I say your name correctly?
Yes, perfectly, Balaka.
Okay. So this is what I want to share. What resonated with me, Balaka, is when you made the statement, "We are alive." And when you said that, it just touched my soul because it was so powerful and it made an impact. But this is also what I want to share is regarding this pandemic, my background is social work. So I'm aware of resiliency and I know what it means to be resilient. Mm-hmm. However, within this process, perseverance, that has also impacted my life tremendously because, at times we think that, hey, is this going to end or we should give up? And I've just learned throughout this process that you have to continue to persevere. Yeah. So even though in your stories, they had those little milestones, they still continue to persevere. And particularly the 2 friends, they could have stopped walking, but they continue to walk. And that's perseverance. So I just want to say thank you. The stories, they were truly a blessing because it just reminded me that I need to keep going. I don't know where I'm going, but I know I need to keep going.
Thank you so much for sharing that, T. Thank you so much. And I think, what you had just mentioned right now, we don't always know where we're going. Even the situation with the pandemic right now, as much as people want to believe one thing or another and not to, in any way challenge what anyone is believing, but just the fact that no one really knows. you know, and no one knows really what tomorrow brings at all. So that point you made about keep on going, you take the next step, you put the next foot forward, and that's what you have to keep doing. So I wanted to share with you just a little bit about during the pandemic last year, we experienced where my husband's company had an acquisition and they removed his position. So this was about maybe 2 weeks before, maybe 3 weeks before the lockdown happened in Chicago. And that was an unusual situation. And I just want to share that without, you know, too much of the description of those times, but I can tell you that, you know, when anybody experiences such a drastic shift in your life where, you know, everything changes for you suddenly, whatever that might be, you know, I've experienced, I experienced a divorce in my life after 30 years, whatever that, you know, changes that's so disruptive, and it's abrupt also, that it kind of lands on you like in one fell swoop. Of course, it's going to throw you for a tizzy a little bit. You know, you have to find your grounding, your feet back onto the ground. You know, it's like, and you for a little bit there, it's like you're shaking, like what's happened, right? And those can be very dark times for any of us. And I'm sure all of us through our life journey experience different things that make us feel that way, not comparing to one to another or anything, but that uniquely to us, we experience it like, wow, it's the rug is totally pulled out underneath me. Or I've even lost my way. I don't know how. And of course, we have to face those kinds of fears and all those kinds of things. I can just tell you that, you know, I was observing this condition, and I look at it as a condition that happened to us. And we had 10 months of maneuvering and, you know, what felt like an abyss at times. At other times, it felt like we were able to culminate energy around us of our previous experiences in life that would help to sustain us, or, you know, give us that boost of encouragement, or kind of like, we'll be okay, you know, kind of thing, and optimism. And there were other days that there was a frustration that built up, and the energy was like, you know, some choice words there about what the situation was and how it was, what, you know, was going to happen. And, you know, from that optimism to the pessimism to the frustration, anger, you know, all, I mean, just the full bag of it, right? Because we're humans with these experiences, you know, and
like T said, that persevering even when we don't know if this is the right way, in the storm, blinding, but still just keep the next foot forward and keep going.
Exactly. But part of that whole experience was about being able to digest and process the feelings as they came. So it wasn't about denying it. It wasn't even trying to be like, oh, well, I'm going to try to do this instead and not feel these other things that might make me more uncomfortable. There was a process and a digestion that was happening with all of that. And there were nutrients that we were receiving from actually working through these different types of emotions. And it was when we did that, that then we were able to have more clarity. Energetically, we were freed up more to be able to then apply things like, okay, what do I want to focus on? How do I want to direct my energy? But you can't skip over the pieces either, you know, is what I'm trying to say. We still had to process that and let that then become a foundation from the nutrients we received from that. And it was a really powerful time because we began to focus on where we did see ourselves going. And we even had, you know, we have these experiences, so it'll throw something our way and we're like, well, is that what I'm supposed to do? And in these moments, we're like, maybe I should do that because, you know, it'll resolve the condition that's in front of me. But it doesn't really match inwardly like what we really want, but we're feeling like we kind of have to do it, you know, obligatory, or maybe it's the saving grace or whatever, but it's based out of fear. And if it's based out of fear, that's not aligning with our highest intention of what we really are, you know, in our hearts calling for. So we had to do some things that we had to be still about it, very still, enter into that patient mode, trust, and move forward with, wait, does this match truly my heart calling? And we had to keep moving in that direction. And like you said, T, perseverance, persevering that trust and keep working on that path. And then all of a sudden, what manifested before us was better than before. And it realigned us to what we were wanting to create for ourselves in our life. And it
Did the story series also happened as a, as part of your processing through this story series that you thought?
Yeah, we did. We thought about this, yes, because at that time we went on to also beyond the economic situation and what we were doing there and all of that, those things, we began to align ourselves with what we were going to do with what we had thought was the nonprofit center, the physical space that we were going to open up in Chicago. And we were blessed to receive 3 board members last year, and Balaka is one of them. And we were also able to create this series as a way to help address all the different ways that people are experiencing well-being. And it's on so many levels, as we know. And this is part of this holistic integration that we really advocate for with PureEsperanza. Yes.
Right. Just to kind of, include another aspect of it. The financial is deeply, a fearful area of
Sure.
our livelihood depends on it. And the new problem that as a social worker that T has experienced, the emotional, social disasters in a way, with the jobs gone or with a family member gone, or children who kind of left alone with the parents gone, which is a new problem in India, with such a huge number of the people in their 30s and 40s who have passed away, younger children, which kind of draws a parallel and is a blend of what T was saying about perseverance and continued processing.
Yes.
That even when the pandemic is over, in terms of numbers of people in the hospital or numbers of death, we need to go beyond that statistics to touch the affected people.
Yes.
Instill that belief. There are so many, elementary school children who are orphaned now.
Yes.
And there is so much of, trafficking. People and the police are working together again to try to see that they don't lose them. These kids find homes. So for them, that continued processing is almost lifelong.
Yeah.
Until they're fully adults. And those of us who have, again, found our resilience, who have found some ground to again grow, we have to always remember that we have a continued giving in the process. Has to continue. It's not the pandemic is over and it's not behind us. It will continue to go with us, the impact of the pandemic, for a very, very, very long time. And those of us who have found the foothold, it's on us to kind of continue, and that will create more patience. If we are patient and aware of it, I think that'll create more ripple effect of goodness, helping those who are really close to the panic, close to the loss, feel that yes, we can build our resilience because we have people assisting us in however way you plan it. Some do it with money, some do it with time, some do it through prayers and other kinds of giving. But just the awareness that the pandemic is not just the statistics of people in the hospitals or people dead, but the slow impact of it is enormous. Just like that village losing their entire food resource, but even that is a short term, maybe another couple of seasons. But this is going to be into many seasons, and we can create less and less panic if we are present into this awareness and our staying calm will help us bloom to, embrace all those who are suffering now.
Yes, Stephen said here in the chat, much more patient, and yes, that's true. I think that came forth and continues to evolve for each of us and speak to us in different ways. I know that during that time, we have a large family. We have 6 adult children, but then there's our in-laws, so there's another 5 of them or significant other, and and then their families, our grandchildren, and to hear each of their different experiences, other states, other restrictions, not restrictions, other situations, just a ton of things. Yeah.
You can't go to them because of the disease.
Exactly. And there were so many times that, I'm sure for all of us that we experienced that, like, I can't get there, I can't do this or that, or whatever the situation was. And, them, other families, it's one thing when it's in your home and you're trying to deal with the financial aspect or the illness or whatever that might be. But then, how can you help those others that might be experiencing those same kinds of things? So there's this very important piece about the presence that's so important. And I think that when we're mindfully practicing all different forms of patience, and I believe that I think, this is an opportunity. The pandemic is mysteriously providing an opportunity for all of us to learn more about patience. This presence is really important because this perseverance that we talk about, the ability to be patient, to be here in this moment, so that we don't have that anxiety building up of what's to come or what might come or whatever, but it helps to keep us grounded. And I do believe that it's very much connected to spirit. And I've always admired that about different stories that I hear, that indomitable spirit in a human being to persevere against extreme challenges and adversity.
Did Jody have something to say for that? And I thought she had.
Yeah.
Hi, Jody.
Hi.
Yes.
Thank you for your patience with me. I found myself a little shy there at the moment to chime in.
Oh,
But
thankful you did.
Beautiful stories. I was actually very moved, and really some of these things that you had shared, Balaka, really is so in alignment with things I have been navigating. And so yeah, I just resilience to our pain. I like when you said we have the potential to be leaders of our own life. I actually was just signed up to take a leadership course recently, and ended up getting a full scholarship to attend a year-long group. That is really profound for me. I just I don't know. I don't mean to, I don't know. I'm finding myself really shy, but another thing you said is that we have limitless possibilities. And I've just, I have been like, if I had a title, it would be Against All Odds. I'm just here before you today. And it's such a miracle. I love to hear these stories of even through all these adversities or these unexpected things that come up. I have this vision of I just have this vision I hold on to, and every day I'm working towards this vision, and I'm just really grateful.
You're persevering through it consistently moving forward. Yeah.
That's
so,
wonderful.
It's an irony that we have that pun that, we have had so many patients in this pandemic. And now it's teaching us to be patient, those who are alive will have to remember this and not just get over the hump, but to remember this and be patient through the rest of our life, through any adversity that comes,
One thing that it reminded me of is that it really stirred up a lot of fear-based stuff where a lot of people, I had to see it literally face their fears head on, and then to overcome that and to, you know, navigate through that is really incredible. So I've seen also life-changing transformations happen and still happening. So
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and that's
So
what
much for sharing, Jody.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jody. Thank you. And I think you hit it like head on, which is about the transformations. This is a transformative time right now, for sure. And everything that we're experiencing, if you know, if I can just share with you this little vision that comes to me when you were speaking, Jody, which is, if you could imagine that energetically there's this, you know, field of energy around all, let's say, all the collective fear that was out there, and every little transformation shifted that and released light out, and released strength out, and released courage out, and released vision out, and released leadership out, and released hope out. You know, whatever it was, all these things, if you could imagine little implosions going on all over the collective, and how brilliant that light must be for the collective whole. And what an honor it is to get to witness and be part of that transformation that's happening for us all. So we thank you.
And I really like the T's, you know, perspective of putting all of this and adding that perseverance, you know, another P. Like we dealt with 3 P's, right?
Yes.
And T added another P to it, and that's.
He has another question for you, Balaka.
Oh yeah, okay.
Balaka, I just want to know, do you think it's a possibility where the individuals who are alive, they could actually be representing the grandfather in your first story?
Yes, I think so. You know,
do you understand what I'm saying? Like, basically, you know, we're going to experience another tragic. You know, history, it repeats itself, but the reason why it repeats itself, because we have to learn another lesson. So my question is, do you think it's a possibility we are the grandfathers, because we could be sharing this story with our grandchildren in years to come? It's just a thought.
Yes, and it's a very powerful thought, and I love the, you know, imagery that you brought out, that let's be the grandfather in the story, because Esperanza and I were talking about putting all the stories into a book so that it's not just a series of videos to watch, but it has got more permanence in, you know, in many different modalities. Basically, those who are visual will watch this, those who want to read can have that. But that was just an idea we were discussing. But the way it's so beautifully that you put it, that can we be the grandfather? Like, can we, what we have learned, what we have witnessed, can we take it on for our grandchildren? Yes, absolutely. And, you know, it was so good that some of us are good listener students, you know, auditory. We learn, we get wisdom through listening, which this grandfather did. He hadn't seen it in his childhood. He had never seen a tsunami. He didn't see the sea curling back. He heard it from his grandson, and he had heard the story from his grandfather. So you see how he was just the conduit in between, and he heard the reality from the little boy, remembered the story of his being little, and put it together and saved the whole village. So our experience, we can be super grandfathers in that case, because we actually lived through this fear.
Yeah.
So I love that idea.
And I think it's just what you said just before that connected that to what T said, Balaka, which was that piece where it's not just about getting over the hump, it's about carrying the story, carrying the wisdom forward. And I absolutely believe that, just like the Native American Indians would teach, everything is, every decision, every choice, everything that we carry forth is 7 generations out into the future. And so we can carry that with us. And, you know, for anyone doing energetic work out there, there's these timelines that we can just really travel through, past or present, to bring it to now. And there's one more aspect about the grandparent that I think is so important, because he couldn't physically see that far. He was relying on what his grandson was telling him about what was happening, but it was his presence. You know, had he been distracted in other ways, he was the wise one sitting on the hill and looking out across all this life. And this is an archetype, and it's an archetype of a part of a dimension within our own selves, of our own soul. So this is another part of us, you know. So absolutely, T, let us be the grandfathers. And with that, we come to the hour, and I thank you all so much for being here. Balaka, would you tell them, please, where they can reach you at, if they would like to know more about your work?
Yes, I think I would say more than work. I would say that, you know, as a people,
Yes.
we are bonded today. So both Jody and T, I would say, the connect with me on Facebook. I go by the same name, Balaka Ghosal, and my page is Balaka Ghosal, the Green Writer. So you can connect me in both the pages, and let's see where, you know, we can keep the discussion beautifully on, and add more value to Esperanza's. My website is thegreenwriter.com.
Yes.
Where I put environment stories, and I hope to put my social and this other side and all these videos there as well.
And Balaka, you know, Balaka, you mentioned about seeing your videos, but you have a whole bunch of environmentally friendly videos, recycling and all kinds of things that are really wonderful and entertaining and amusing as well. And I'm so thankful that you're doing that part too, to bring more consciousness to all of us about the impact on our environment and the way we live. You can also find the work that we do, Balaka, as part of that, with PureEsperanza and our organization at PureEsperanza.org. You can follow us on social media. I'm seeing a couple things here. Just so grateful for the sharing of this space with everyone. Thank you as well here. Yes, super grandfathers, absolutely, T. Everyone here, thank you so much. Thank you, Stephen, also for being present. And for all those that will be viewing this at another time, we encourage you to be the creators of your life, to take the wisdom that's coming to you in all the different ways, all the different forms, all the different experiences that are uniquely yours, and keep working with that to enhance and to empower your journey of well-being. So follow us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, our website. You can connect with us there, and we encourage you to be part of this consciousness movement that is transforming our collective. Blessings to everyone.
Thank you so much.
Take care, friends. Until next time.
Enjoy.
Enjoy.